Assalamu alaikum. What if I were to tell you that the entire Arabic language can fit on a single wall? Well, it can. You see, I spent a lot of time making this, and I did it because I wanted a way for students who have already learned the Arabic language or still haven't even started, they want to start, to be able to visualize all of the concepts that they learn in Arabic. Because while you're learning Arabic, you tend to learn a concept, then another concept, another concept, and in your brain it's all scattered. But it would be a lot easier if you were able to see how every single concept connects to the other concept so that it can remain in your brain. Now, not only will that make it easier to learn, but it would also make it easier to remember or harder to forget. Because if you know one is connected to the other, is connected to the next, then it will be harder for you to forget one of those links in the chain. In this video, I'm going to explain all of the different steps going from the very beginning, which is right here, all the way to the end, and hopefully you'll know whether you already know Arabic, what parts that you need to work on because you forgot about them, or if you don't know Arabic at all, what things do you need to learn? And if you do learn these things, then you now have a very, very solid foundation of the Arabic language. If you know everything here, then your Arabic is solid. And after that, you could even just start learning on your own. You don't really need to have a teacher or anything after that. After you learn everything here, you kind of have your own ability to be able to go and search and do things on your own. So let's begin. And by the way, this video by no means is trying to teach you all of the concepts. Sometimes I go a little bit more in depth into some of the concepts here that we're going to be discussing, but this is mainly a overview of Arabic. Like if you ever gone to like a university and you want to do a degree plan, you can just go online and search up from that university what's the flow chart or whatever they do. It's like, okay, first you have to take this class and then that class, and then that. They kind of just name the class. They're not going to go in depth into teaching you the information from that class. Even if it has a small description, it won't actually teach you the information. So this is by no means trying to teach you all of the concepts that are in Arabic, because that would take many, many hours, and you have to take time, you have to review, you have to revise for it to stick into your brain. But this is going to be a great reference material to see, like, okay, well, I learned Arabic. Let me go back and kind of review. Do I still remember this? Do I understand this concept? Oh, I forgot about that concept. Let me go and review it. Instead of going in deep into the concept, I'm probably just going to like mention some of them. This is how it works. This is what it means. And you're going to study it if you study Arabic. Or if you have studied Arabic, make sure you know it. Make sure you have studied it. So that's pretty much what this video is going to be. Since I have to zoom into all the note cards, I'm not going to be in frame for at least this part here. But that's fine. So to begin, when you learn Arabic, the first thing that you typically learn is that there are three types of words in Arabic. Now, the first word is called ism, second one is called fi'l, third one is called a harf. Now, what is a ism, what is a fi'l, what is a harf? Basically, a ism is loosely translated as noun, a fi'l is loosely translated as a verb, and a harf is loosely translated as a particle, even though most people don't know what that is anyways. But we're going to first learn ism, then fi'l, and then harf. So I said loosely translated because an ism isn't actually just a noun. There are other things in English that aren't nouns, but in Arabic they are isms. So ism is more comprehensive than a noun. So just follow the string. Ism has four properties. If you ever want to learn isms or what is a quote unquote noun or an ism, you just have to know that there are four properties of an ism in Arabic. Those are status, number, gender, and type. If you see an ism, which you don't necessarily at this moment have the ability to discern what's an ism and what's not an ism, but once you finish this, you will. Once you see an ism, you know it should have a status, a number, a gender, and a type. And just to begin, what is a status? This string here connected from status to here. Status also has four things. So ism has four properties. It has status, number, gender, and type. And when you go into status, when you press into status, it also has four things about status, four sub-properties, you can say, of status. Those four sub-properties are forms of status. What are the forms of status? Meaning the types. How do you tell those forms? How do you tell what form is what? Light versus heavy isms and flexibility of an ism. So you have ism has four properties: status, number, gender, and type. Status has four subsections: the forms of status, how to tell status, light versus heavy status, and the flexibility of certain statuses. So what are forms of status? There are 3 forms in Arabic for status. Now, there's going to be a lot of, there are 2 of this, and there are 3 of that, and there are 4 of this, but it's going to be easier once you just learn them. And once they're all connected, it's not that complicated. 3 forms of status is rafa', nasib, and jar. Now, for now, just because I'm just talking about the forms, all you need to know is that's it. That's what they're called. There's a form of Arabic called form of a word of a status called rafa', called nasib, and called jar. Now, these 3 statuses correspond to the 3 sounds in Arabic. There are only 3 possible sounds that you could really make in Arabic. There's the un, there's the n, there's the in. If you ever like watch the Arabic alphabet video, it's like un, n, in, or something, bun, ben, bin. It goes to the alphabet and it puts all of the different sounds on every letter. There's only 3 sounds, but each of those sounds could be heavy or light. So you could say un or u. You could say n or a. You could say in or e. So those are what correspond to rafa', nasb, and jar. And that's why I'm going to see when we go to how to tell, how do you tell rafa'? A rafa' word is a word that ends with u or un. A nasb word ends with a or n, and a jar word ends with e or in. But not only that, there's more, because un and in is only for singular words. So also ani, if a word ends with ani, if you see a word that ends with ani, like for example muslimani or something, you know that's a rafa' word. All you know is that it's rafa'. What does that mean? What does it really do? What's the purpose of it being rafa'? We haven't gone to that yet, but you know that it is rafa'. Rafa' word ends with u or un. Ani, una, or atun. You see any word that ends with, any ism I should say, that ends with un or u, ani, una, or atun, that is a rafa' word. Any word that ends with a or n, aini, ina, or atin, that is also a nasib word. I can give you an example like musliman, muslimaini, muslimina, muslimatin. Those are all nasib. You hear a word muslimatin, you know that's nasib. Jar, this word's going to get a bit overlapping. If you hear a word that ends with e or in, that is jar. Also aini, ina, or atin. Now you're just like, wait, I just heard aini, ina, or atin. Those are the exact same thing for nasib. Yes. If you see a word that ends with aini, ina, or atin, it actually could be nasib or jar. How do you tell? Well, context will tell you. It's going to be very obvious. Once we get to other things, it's going to be obvious what's nasib and what's jar. Words aren't just magically nasib or magically jar. There's a reason. So you're going to know if it ends with aini, if it's nasib or jar. If it ends with ina, if it's nasib or jar. If it ends with atin, if it's nasib or jar. It's going to be very clear. That is the types, or how to tell the forms of rafa', nasib, or jar. Then you have light versus heavy status. Remember, we're in status. If you have like your file explorer, you have ism, you click on ism, all the subcategories come up. It has status, number, gender, type. You click on status, status open up, had forms, how to tell, light versus heavy, flexibility. Now we're on light versus heavy. So always remember where you are in the chain. Light versus heavy status. So what are words that are lights versus heavy? So by default, words are heavy. Now, like I said, u or un, a or n, e or in. The only difference is the un and in is heavy. The u, a, e is light. Now, how do you make a word light other than this? Obviously, you remove the tanween. That's what it's called. If you have a double vowel, double sound, the un, that's called tanween. N is called tanween. In is also called tanween. You can remove those. Remove one of them. So u, a, e, that makes a word light. Or you remove the extra noon. If you remove the extra noon, it becomes light. Now, what does it mean by the extra noon? Well, look at all the other versions. Has ani, una, aini, ina, aini, ina. Those all have a noon. If you remove them, that becomes light. So if you just have a, or u, or e, or a, then that's light. For example, you have the word muslimuna. You want to make it light, you say muslimu. You just get rid of the noon, that makes it light. Now, what about this atun and atin? Those also have the un or the in sound. So you just remove the tanween. So atu, ati, ati, that makes the word light. But words, like I said, they're heavy by default. So they have to be a reason to become light. If they are a mudaf, you're like, I don't know what that is. A munada, yeah, I also don't know what that is. Non-Arab names and partly flexible words. You kind of understand what that is. and absolutely no. So you don't know what any of those means, but I'm going to tell you right now. You don't know what those mean, but don't worry, because like mudaf is right here. We're about to learn what is a mudaf. Munada will learn. All these here will learn. What is a mudaf, anyways? A mudaf, by definition, it is the word before of in English. If you want to have an Arabic sentence and you translate it to English, and you have the word of, the word before that is a mudaf. And it's usually light, like we said, the four reasons to make a word light is a mudaf. So for example, if you say Baytu Muhammadin, Baytu Muhammadin, if you say Baytu Muhammad, that means the house of Muhammad. You translate that, it means the house of Muhammad. You can say Muhammad's house, but you, you can flip them and say the house of Muhammad. Now the word before of is house. So the word house is a mudaf. That's why you don't say Baytun, you say Baytu. You make it light. So one reason to make a word light is a mudaf. Munada means when you're calling someone. If you want to call someone in Arabic, you have a harf. It's called ya, like ya Muhammad or ya Ahmed or ya whatever. That is when you call someone. When you call someone, you make the word light. So you don't say ya Muhammadun, you say ya Muhammadu, because you make the word light. Non-Arab names. So any type of name that's non-Arab is light. Absolutely no is when you have a la before a word that means like there's absolutely none of this thing here. For example, when you say la ilaha illallah, ilaha, you don't say la ilahan. You don't make it heavy because you're saying there's absolutely no God except Allah. So you're saying there's absolutely no of this thing. Then you make a word light. Next is flexibility. I'm going to keep reminding us where we are. We have three types of words in Arabic: ism, fi'l, harf. If you go into ism, there are four properties of an ism: status, number, gender, type. We're only on status right now. Status has four subsections: forms of status, how to tell status, light versus heavy status, and the flexibility of status. We're still on the flexibility part. And then we'll go back to number, gender, and type. Flexibility. Fully flexible words, they're called munsarif. I'm always going to give like the Arabic term of the word. However, you could just know what it means in English: fully flexible or partly flexible or non-flexible. Because if you get confused with all the new Arabic words and you don't learn the concepts, then there's no point. You kind of defeated the purpose. It's more important to learn the concept than it is to learn the word. So a fully flexible word is a word that can take all of the statuses. For example, you have rafa', nasab, jar, and in. A fully flexible word is a word that can become and in. So like the word Muhammad, Muhammadun, Muhammadan, Muhammadin. You could have all those. But some words are partly flexible. They can't have all of them. Like the word, for example, Mecca. You have the word Mecca. You can't say Mekkatun, Mekkatan, Mekkatin. That doesn't exist in Arabic. You can only say Mekkatu, Mekkata. That's it. So you could kind of flex it a little bit, but partly. It's partly flexible. Now, some words are not flexible at all. There's like the word Musa. You don't have Musaun, Musa'an, Musa'in. You don't have any of that. You just have Musa, Musa, Musa. So what does this really mean? We learned that there's the rafi', nasb, and jar, but some words, they can't have the in sound. So you say that they're jar even though they don't have that sound. So for example, Ahmadu is rafi'. Or let me use Mecca because I already used that example. You have Mekkatu, Mekkata, Mekkata. The word Mecca in the rafi' form is Mekkatu. When it's in nasb form, it's Mekkata. But it can't have the E sound. So you just have to know that it's partly flexible. It cannot take the E sound. It can be jar, but it won't show jar. It won't have the in sound. That's the only reason we learned flexibility, because we learned rafa', nasb, and jar, but there are some words that don't show all of their nasb, rafa', and jar because they're partly flexible. Or the word Musa. The word Musa, it just ends with the sound. It doesn't have a an, or in. And it's not even an like it's not this fatha. It's something different. It's a whole alif maqsura. It's Musa. So it doesn't show if it's rafa', nasb, and jar. That's why we learn flexibility. Now we go back to number and gender and type. Assalamu alaikum. If you've ever wanted to learn Arabic fluently, not just random vocabulary words, but deep comprehension of Quran, Hadith, and classical texts, then check out Andalus Institute. It is a complete online Arabic program built for beginners, and it is very structured. You get daily live sessions, feedback from real teachers, and many video lessons and quizzes to test your knowledge. Here's a quick look inside their platform. You can track your progress, submit assignments, and speak with others learning just like you. I've been using it and it's made a huge difference. And you can start anytime. Just click the link in the description. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so we finished up status. You have ism, fi'l, harf. Ism has 4 properties: status, number, gender, and type. We finished all of status. We know what types of status are there. We know there's only 3. There's rafa' status, nasab status, and jar status. We know how to tell if a word is rafa'. If it ends with u or un, or ani or una, then it's rafa'. If it ends with a or an, aini or ina, then it's nasab. Or if it's nasab, then if it ends with e or in, or aini or ina, then it's jar. So we know how to tell a word status. But an ism status. But what about its number, if it's pair or plural? We already kind of touched up on this a little bit when we were doing status, but now we're going to go fully into number. Number, of course, unlike English, you have only singular and plural words in English. You say he went, and if there's 2 people, you say they. There's only he or they. There's no like in between. If there's 2 people, you say both of them. You have to add both of. But in Arabic, you have singular, pair, or plural words. So you can say Muslimani. There are 2 Muslims. In English, you'd have to say 2. But there's no word. You either have Muslim, which is singular, or you have Muslims, which is plural. You don't have like a word just for 2. But in Arabic, you have singular, pair, or plural. Now, singular words, they end with just the tanween, like we said. The un, the an, the in, those are singular words. The pair words are the ones that end with ani or aini. So if you want to say 2 Muslims or 2 books, kitabani, 2 books. Kitabaini, 2 books. And then you have plural words. Now, plural is divided up. You have a masculine plural, a feminine plural, and a broken plural. Now, this is where it gets a little bit technical with the broken plural. But first, the easiest one is masculine plural. Masculine plural is una. It can be light. U. We said that a word, you just get rid of the noon. If it's light, it doesn't change that it's masculine and it's plural. It's still masculine plural, regardless if it's light. So una, u, ina, or e, those are all masculine plural. Feminine plural is atun or atin, and those could be heavy or light. Now, broken plural is where it gets a bit confusing. Usually in like English, if you want to make a word plural, sometimes you just add like an S. You say like book, you just add an S, you say books. You want to say table, you just say tables. But some words, you have to change the middle of the word. Instead of adding a word to the end, you change the middle. You have mouse, and then you don't say mouses, you say mice. So you remove the O-U-S, and you added a I-C. And that way, you pretty much have to break the word open, take what's inside, and replace it. That's what in Arabic is a broken plural. You have the word Muslim. To make it plural, you just say Muslimun. You just added a little una. Once you added that una, it's not broken because the word Muslim is still there. You just added something to it. But broken plurals are words that you had to change it. You have the word masjid. You don't say masjidun, masjiduna or something, or masjidatun. You have to say masajid for plural. You have to say masajid. So you broke the word in the middle and added a whole alif. And that way it's a broken plural. Even broken plurals, they are divided into 2 categories. You have a human broken plural and a non-human broken plural. Now, what is the difference? When I say human, I don't necessarily mean a human being. In Arabic, we just say aqil, anything that has intellect. Now, really, like, it's only referring to like human beings, angels, and like jinn. That if you're talking about those, you're talking about humans or things that are alive. Other than that, it's called non-human. Now, this here is where it gets a little bit confusing when we start talking about broken plural. Now, because it's kind of confusing, I'm just going to kind of mention what the confusion is and then just move on from there because it takes time to understand it, kind of to get used to it. So, I said broken plurals are broken up into human and non-human, but actually also feminine plurals. We said there are masculine, feminine, broken. Feminine is also broken up into human, feminine, and non-human feminine. And then broken plural is treated as human or non-human. And I can give you an example real quick. For example, a feminine plural, meaning it ends with atun or it ends with atin, a feminine plural that is non-human is the word like ayat. You hear in the Quran a lot, ayat. Ayat means ayat really. It just means like signs or miracles, or it just means ayat. You can just translate it as ayat. So ayat they're not a living thing. So it is a non-human feminine plural. But there are also words that are feminine and human, like the word muslimat. Muslimat means Muslim women. They're obviously humans, so that is a human feminine plural versus a non-human. Broken plural, I could do the same. Broken plural, you can have a word like rijal. You have the word rajul, means human. If you want to say, rajul means man. If you want to say men, you don't say rajuluna or something. You don't add to it. You have to break the word and add a alif. So you have the word rijal. So that is a broken plural, a human version of it. There's a non-human broken plural, like for example, kutub, I guess. Sure, kutub. The word kitab means book. To say books, you don't say kutub, kutubat or something. You say kitab, kutub. So you have to break the word and remove actually a letter. So that is a non-human broken plural. What's very strange in Arabic is that sometimes you want to give words descriptions. You don't want to say book, you want to say those large books over there. You don't want to say those men, you want to say those fast men over there. So those are called adjectives. You want to like describe them. You don't want to say a book, you want to say a large book. To describe words, usually they have to match in terms of their gender. You say like, this is plural masculine, the description is going to be plural masculine. The whatever it is going to have to match. However, with feminine plurals, if you have a human feminine, you treat it as plural feminine, which makes sense. Like muslimat, you treat it as muslimat, 3 feminine. That makes sense. But if it's non-human, you can treat it as singular, which is weird. So you can say like, if you want to say clear ayat, you don't want to say ayat, you want to say clear ayat, you can say ayatun bayinatun instead of bayinat. Usually one ends with at, the other one ends with at, so they match. But you can mix match them in Arabic. Same thing with human broken plural, you can treat it as singular feminine. You can say rijal, you can say those men, you can say tilka rijal, tilka, even though that's for like singular feminine, you can treat it as singular feminine. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but that's how it works, and it's kind of there's reasons here. If you want to read why, go ahead and read it. But it's good to know, and you need to know it when you learn Arabic, anyways. But that's something that you're gonna learn. Another thing is there are some words that are plural just because the Arabs said so, pretty much. It's qawm, nas, and qarn. If you know these 3 words are all plural. Why? Because. Okay, getting into the last 2 properties of an ism, gender and type. So getting into gender, you only have 2 genders, masculine and feminine, of course. Masculine is the default, meaning all words are masculine until proven feminine, pretty much. It's like that. It's like guilty or innocent until proven guilty. So it's masculine until proven feminine. Now there are only some reasons, a few reasons to make a word feminine. Obviously, if it actually ends with the feminine plural ending, like atun or a ta marbuta, there's many words, at least the way I learned it, is called fake feminine, meaning it's a feminine word, but it's not actual female. It's not like a muslimat, it's not women. It's like many words that end with ta marbuta or this alif maqsura or this long alif with the hamza. So like the word dhikra. Dhikra is just means remembrance, but it's a feminine word because it ends with this. Or ayah, the word ayah ends with this, so it's feminine, even though it just means like sign. Or tadhkira is feminine, it means reminder as well. So those are words that are feminine because of the way they end. Broken plurals, like we said, broken plurals can be treated as singular feminine, so those are a type of feminine. There are some words that are feminine just because the Arab said so. There's going to be a few things in here in which the reason why they are the way they are is just because we didn't get to make up the language. This language was made thousands of years ago, and they chose to make some words feminine for no reason or for whatever reason. I don't really know. The word nar means fire is feminine. The word dar, which means house, is feminine. But don't get that confused and think all words for house are feminine. Like the word bait is masculine, but dar specifically is feminine. The word jahannam is feminine. The word shams is feminine. There are a lot of words that you need to learn that are just feminine. They're called, I think, mu'annath sima'i, I think it's called. They're just feminine because that's how we use them. Now, body parts in pairs. I mean, if you have any body part that you have 2 of them, like arms, you have 2 arms, eyes, you have 2 eyes, lips, you have 2 lips, those are all feminine just because that's a rule in Arabic. Body parts in pairs are feminine. And finally, we get to type. Uh, what are what are the types of an ism? So what does that even mean by type? Type means, is it common or is it proper? Now, you don't really need to learn common because any word that isn't proper is common. So you just have to learn proper. That's it, really. Now, there's only a few reasons to make a word proper. There's about 6 or 7. Here I just labeled 6 of them. Any word with alif lam on it is proper. You have the word kitab means book. That is common. If you have the word al-kitab, the book, it's proper. It's mu'arraf. Mu'arraf and common is nakira. Names of people, names of places, names of anything is proper. Munada, if you don't remember what that is, it's when you call someone. You say Ya Muhammadu, or Ya, even if it's a common word like boy, like walad. If you say Ya waladu, then that makes it proper because you called it. Pronouns are proper, like huwa, hiya, those are all proper as well. Pointers and ism mawsul. What are these? Well, they're right here. Let me tell you what pointers are. Pointer words. Words that you say when you're pointing at something. So in English you say that right there, or oh, them over there. So that, them, those are pointer words. So there's only like, let's see, 1, 2, 3. There's only about 12 of them. So it's هذا, you just memorize it. هذا, هذاني, هؤلاء. هذه, هاتان, هؤلاء. ذلك, ذانك, أولئك, تلك, تانك, أولئك. You memorize those. Those are all the pointer words. هذا means this. هذاني means both of these. هؤلاء means these people. It means plural, these. هذه means this, feminine. هاتان means both of these, feminine. هؤلاء means these also. ذلك is that. ذانك is both of those. أولئك is them over there, those people. تلك is that, but feminine. Tanika is both of those, but feminine. Ulaika is also the same, means those people. Now, if you have these words followed by alif lam, they kind of connect to each other. So you have to, if you say ذلك الكتاب, you say that book, or ذلك الرجل, that man. If you combine it with the word alif lam afterwards, then they kind of connect and they become not that is a man, but that man over there. Now, what is a mawsuf والصفة? الموصوف والصفة. It just means noun, mawsuf, and صفة is the adjective. You have to know that it's translated backwards from Arabic to English. Now, in English, how does it work? You have a bus, and you want to say it's a yellow bus. So what do you say? You say yellow bus. You put the word yellow, the adjective first, and then the noun. But in Arabic, you would flip it. You'd say bus yellow. If you want to say a large book, in English, you say large, and then book. But in Arabic, you would say kitabun kabirun. So you say kitab kabir, which means book large. So it's in reverse order. All 4 of the ism properties, what are the 4 ism properties? Status, number, gender, type. They must match between the mawsuf and the sifa. So kitab is, let's look at all the 4 properties. What's the status? Well, I didn't put a status on it. I just said kitab. Let me say kitabun. Kitabun is rafa because it ends with un. So that's the status. The number, it's singular. The gender, it's masculine. The type, it's common. So if I want to say a large book, it better be same status, rafa, same number, singular, same gender, masculine, same type, common. So kitabun kabirun. That's how you match it. And then there are some exceptions here, but that's fine. One mawsuf could have many sifat. You could read that if you want. So now getting back here, you have all these words, pointer words, ismul ishara, the hadha, hadani, all that we learned just now. Those are all proper. Pronouns, if you say huwa, hum, hiya, those are all proper. Munada is proper, names are proper, and words with alif lam are also proper. And that is pretty much it for all of ism. So now pretty much this entire section here is done. That's all of ism. You have ism, 4 properties of ism: status, number, gender, type. Status has 4 things in it. Here they are. Number has a few things, gender, and then type. Now time to go on to fi'l. Now I said fi'l is loosely translated as verb. That's only because verbs in English, they don't have a lot of information built into it, while fi'ls do. If you say yajri, that means he runs. In English, if you just say runs, it doesn't mean who is running. It doesn't show you who is doing it. It just tells you if it's past or present, but it doesn't tell you who's doing it. But in Arabic, it all is in one word. For now, I'm only going to talk about two types of fi'l, which is past tense and present tense. So past tense is called a madi. So we say fi'l madi or fi'l mudari' for present tense. Just like the ism, how the ism had four properties, the fi'l mudari' has three properties. And the madi only has two out of those three. So if you're confused on what these strings, this present tense is going to this whole note card. And then this madi is only going towards these two. So this has all three properties. This one has only these two properties. So start with a mudari', present tense fi'l. The three properties, which we are already familiar with the names of it, status, number, and gender. There's no type for fi'ls. There are no type. Just status, number, and gender. Okay, well then let's go. What are the statuses of a fi'l mudari', of a present tense fi'l? Well, again, we have the forms of the status. How do you tell the status? And heavy versus very heavy. With ism, we had light versus heavy. For fi'l mudari', we have heavy versus very heavy. So the forms are rafi', nasib, and jazm. Now you're like, well, rafi' is for isms, and nasib is also for ism. Jazm is new, but these are the same. Yeah, they have the same name, and they do sound the same. However, you're going to be able to tell when a ism is rafi' versus when a fi'l is rafi'. Now, why is that? Because, well, let's go to how to tell. How do you tell rafi' for a fi'l? For an ism, remember, it was if it ends with u or un. Now for a fi'l, it's when it ends with u, just same thing. However, it begins with a ya or a ta. So if you see a word that begins with ya, begins with ta, ends with u, then it's a rafi' present tense fi'l. Like for example, yaftahu. Yaftahu means he opens. Now yaftahu and starts with ya, ends with u. Yaftahu. That's rafi'. And then, so that's how you can distinguish between an ism and a fi'l. An ism is not going to start with ya, end with u. It's not going to start with ta, end with tu. That's how you can tell a rafi' ism versus a rafi' fi'l. Mudari' at least. So if it ends with ya, ta, plus u, I'm just going to go through this quickly. If it begins with ya, ta, ends with ani. If it begins with ya, ta, ends with una. Or if it begins with ta, ends with ina. Those are all rafi'. Nasib, if it starts with ya, ta, plus a fatha at the end. Yansura or yaftaha. Yata plus the so like yadriba, yadriba, yadriba. Starts with ya, ends with a. Starts with ya or ta, ends with u. Starts with ta, ends with e. Like anti tansuri, anti tusa'idi. Ta with e. That's a nasib fi'l mudari'. Ya or ta plus a sukoon. No, this is, I put jar by accident. It's actually jazm. I don't know why I put jar. I should change that. It says rafa' nasb in, it should be jazm. Jazm, not jar. This is the new one. Now, for ism, it was kasra, so it was e or in. But for a fi'l mudari', it's just a sukoon. So if you have the word yaftah, yaftah, that is the jazm status. It's ya, begins with ya or ta plus sukoon. Begins with ya or ta plus alif. Begins with ya or ta, ends with u. Begins with ta, ends with e. That is a jazm, not a jar word, jazm word. Now you have heavy versus heaviest, or heavy versus very heavy fi'l. Remember, we're only on status here. Status, forms, how to tell heavy versus heaviest, or very heavy. Words are not heavy or very heavy by default. They're just like normal. And you can make it heavy by adding a noon. Now there's a noon with a sukoon and a noon with a shadda. Noon with a sukoon is called noon khafifa. Noon with a sukoon is called noon khafifa. Noon with a shadda is called noon thaqila. So if you have the word yansuru, yansuru means he helps. I want to make it heavy. I want to add more stress. Why do you make a word heavy? To emphasize an action or to take an oath if you're swearing by something. So yansuru means he helps. You want to emphasize it, yansuran, yansuran, or yansuranna. That's just a technicality, but that's all pretty much falls within status. And that's it. For status doesn't have any for, doesn't have any type, or it doesn't have any flexibility, just like it did in ism. Now we go back up here. The present tense has status, number, and gender. The past tense only has number and gender. So now when we're discussing number and gender, it only applies to past tense, but all three of them combined, status, number, and gender, applies to present tense. So they overlap. Also, why did I choose to combine number and gender instead of having a separate one like I did with ism? Well, it's a lot easier just to memorize a few words that already combine number with gender combined. So you don't have to worry about specifically memorizing number and then gender. They're kind of overlapping anyways. You can't really separate them. Always when you have a number, you're going to have a gender with it. When you have a gender, you're going to have a number with it. So it's hard to separate anyways. So let's go down, follow the string down here. Past tense, number, and gender. If you just memorize these 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 words, you know all of the different ways a past tense could be number, which is singular, pair, plural, or gender, masculine or feminine. Why? Because they're all labeled. It's like a chart pretty much. All the singular, all the pair, all the plural, and then it alternates masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, and then this one here is either or. So if you just memorize nasara, which means he helped. This is a past tense verb right here. This is a past tense fi'l. Nasara, nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata, nasarna, nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum, nasarti, nasartuma, nasartunna, nasartu, nasarna. Memorize this. You know the first word, singular. Second word, pair. Third word, plural, all masculine. Then it goes singular, feminine, pair, feminine, pair, or plural, feminine. Singular, masculine, singular, or pair, masculine. What's the difference between this singular masculine and this singular masculine? This is nasara, which means he helped. This is nasarta, which means you helped. If you just memorize the pronouns as well, then it's going to help you. There's a better way to memorize it, where if you say huwa nasara, huma nasara, hum nasaru, hiya nasarat, huma nasarata, hunna nasarna, anta nasarta, antuma nasartuma, antum nasartum, anti nasarti, antuma nasartuma, antunna nasartunna, ana nasartu, ana nahnu nasarna. Memorize that, then you know all the singular, pair, plural, the number, or the gender, masculine or feminine, for all of these here. Now, same thing, literally same thing, but for a present tense. Present tense, you have yansuru, huwa yansuru, huma yansurani, hum yansuruna, hiya tansuru, huma tansurani, hunna yansurna, anta tansuru, antuma tansurani, antum tansuruna, anti tansurina, antuma tansurani, antunna tansurna, ana ansuru, nahnu nansuru. So it goes same thing. Singular, pair, plural. Masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. Those are all the number and gender for any past tense or any present tense fi'l. So far we finished all of ism right here, and now we just finished all of fi'l. Now we just have the last type of word, which is harf. What is this, you may ask? We'll get to that. This is very important, so stick around for this, because this is combining all of these to be able to actually understand Arabic. This is just like bricks, and these here are like combining them into a brick wall. These are just here the building blocks right here. So we have ism, fi'l, and now we need to do harf. Harf is easy. Now I said harf is like in English called a particle. No one knows what that means. Particle sounds like some physics thing, but no, it's like words that don't really have a meaning by themselves unless you have another word after it or before it or something like that. So the word in English, like in, if you just say in or at or on, those words don't really mean anything, but you need them for, you say on the table, in the house, and then they make sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So harf. You have many types of harf, and pretty much they're all just categorized as different harf. So just to begin, you have the harf of nasib. Now, you heard what nasib means, and this one is for ism. What's a nasib ism again? It's a word, an ism that ends with the a or n, the ani, or not the ani, the aini or the ina. If it ends with that, then it's nasib ism. Now, what is the purpose of this harf of nasib? It makes the ism after it mansub. Mansub means in the nasib status. That's what it means. Because remember, I said a word is the rafi' by default, and you don't just have a word being nasib for no reason, and you don't have a word being jar for no reason. They always have a reason to be nasib or jar. Because remember, nasib had some similarities with jar, and I was like, well, how do you tell the difference between a nasib word and a jar word? Well, you're going to tell the difference because you know why a word is nasib or jar. If a word has a harf of nasib right before it, and it could be nasib or jar, well, it's obviously nasib because it had a harf of nasib right before it. So what are these harfs? It's inna, anna, ka'anna, bi'anna, layta, lakinna, la'alla. All these have definition meanings. So like inna means certainly, anna means that, ka'anna means kind like that, bi'anna means because, layta means wish, lakinna means however, la'alla means hopefully. But if you have it before an ism, it makes the ism nasib. For example, you have the word Muslim. You want to say, certainly a Muslim something. Say, inna musliman. So you say inna and then musliman. You make it nasib because there's a harf of nasib before it. So like in the Quran you say, inna allaha, and then whatever else it may be. Inna allaha. Why is there a fatha on the word Allah? Because there's a harf of nasib before it. So that is the harf of nasib. It makes the ism after it nasib. Similarly, you have the harf jar, harf of jar. It's the same thing, but it makes the ism after it majroor. Majroor means in the jar status. What are these? It's ba, ta, kaf, lam, waw, min, fi, an, ala, hatta, ila. Remember these, memorize them. That's all you have to do. And you know, if you say, who is that for? You want li means for. And somebody asks you, who is that for? And you say, oh, it's for a Muslim. You say, li muslimin, li muslimin. So you made it jar because of the harf of jar before it. So it's very, very easy how they work. Now, just to mention what these are, some words can come between the harf and the thing that you're using the harf for. So you said inna musliman, but sometimes a jar and a majroor. What's a jar majroor? It's a harf of jar plus the word after it. Sometimes it can come between the harf of nasib and its ism, pretty much. So you say sometimes words can come in between the harf of nasib and the word that it's making nasib. A jar majroor can come between, or some other words can come between. But for a harf of jar, nothing can come between the harf and its ism. So the harf of jar, nothing can come between it, between the harf and the ism. Nothing can come between. It has to be right together. It has to be li muslimin. It can't be li something 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 and then muslimin. It doesn't work that way. You have another type of harf of nasib, and that is for a fi'l. The other one was harf of nasib for isms. It makes isms nasib. Harf of nasib for a fi'l is called harf nasibatul mudari'. It makes the mudari' nasib. Why the mudari', which is the present tense? Because remember, only the mudari' had status. The past tense didn't have status. Didn't have rafa' nasib or jar. So it makes the present tense fi'l nasib. Those are an, lan, likay, idhan, hatta, and fa sometimes. Likay is li plus k. So you can have li or k. Those are for a fi'l mudari'. And the word la can come between the harf and the present tense fi'l. So for example, if I want to say li means let's see, so that. Li means so that. So yansuru means he helps. If I want to say so that he helps, remember to make a fi'l nasib, it's ya and a ta in the beginning and then a fatha at the end. So liyansura, liyansura. You put a li and then you ended it with a fatha. Why is there a fatha? Why is it nasib? Because of the harf al-nasib for the fi'l. Same thing, harf of jazm. It makes the present tense fi'l majzoom. Majzoom means in the jazm status. It's in, lam, lamma, wal, fal, and li. And ma sometimes. Why sometimes? You get to know that later. Because there's a bunch of types of ma. Not all of them do the same thing. So I don't really need to explain what it does. It makes the present tense majzoom in the jazm status. How come I said some of the mas make harf jazm? Because there is a bunch of different types of ma. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least that I know of, different types of ma. So ma, you have ma mawsuliya, which means what / whatever, and it has no effect on the word after it. Doesn't make it nasib or jar or jazm. It doesn't do anything. It just means what or whatever. Ma zaida, which means it's not translated, it just adds emphasis, also has no effect. Ma nafiya, which means didn't or not at all, has no effect. Ma masdariya, which is also not translated. The ma plus the fi'l is equal to a masdar, which means an idea of something. It also has no effect. Ma shartiya, which means whatever might / whatever may. Now it makes the mudari' majzoom. That's the one that I was talking about, is the harf of jazm. The one that is the ma shartiya. There's still more types of ma though. Ma istifhamiyya, which means what, but used as a question, also has no effect. Ma at-ta'ajjub, which means what an amazing / how amazing, also has no effect on the word after it. Ma az-zamaniyya, which means as long as much as far as, also has no effect. So there's a bunch of different types of ma in Arabic, and most of them have no effect, except for one of them actually, which is the one that makes the harf, the fi'l mudari' majzoom. Similarly, there's a bunch of types of fa. There is a fa al-atif, which means then, and it has no effect. Atif means like it connects two words. It just means then. Like kun fayakun. It just connects these two words. Be and or then it is, for example. Then it exists, then it exists. It has no effect on the word after it. It doesn't make it nasib or jar or rafa or anything like that. Another type of fa is called the fa al-sababiyya. Now, it can have an effect, a grammatical effect on the word after it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. There's 2 times when it does, and the rest of the times it doesn't. Okay, we haven't talked about what nahi is just yet, but we will. We're going to talk about it right here when we get to Ṣarf. We're going to talk about it soon. So when you have a prohibiting word plus a fa plus a present tense mansub, it means otherwise, and also makes the present tense mansub. I'm not going to go too into detail because this is kind of very like specific and kind of very quote unquote advanced, so I don't need to go into too much detail. But there's a bunch of types of fa as well. There's about 2-3 types of fa, a bunch of different types of ma. These are all called harf. So these are all in the harf category because all these are huruf of ma, huruf of fa. They're all, the fa is a harf. It just means then most of the time. Next we have the harf of emphasis and the harf of calling, which is harf al-tawkid and harf al-nida. Harf of emphasis, the harf of emphasis, it's used to emphasize a sentence, of course, and it has no grammatical effect. So those two are just la and qad. It's like saying laqad. You could even combine them actually and say laqad. So those are just harfs that go on sentences and they just simply emphasize the sentence. Harf of calling, it is used to call someone. It doesn't affect the word it's calling, except if it's a mudaf. We learned about mudaf, the word before of. If it is a mudaf, then it makes it mansub. It makes it in the nasab status. For example, I said Baytu Muhammad. Baytu Muhammad means the house of Muhammad. If I want to call the house of Muhammad, for example, well, first of all, what are the harf of nida? It's just ya and ya ayyuha. There's those two harf, ya and ya ayyuha. So if I want to use one of these harf like ya or ya ayyuha to call a mudaf, like Baytu Muhammad, the word bayt is a mudaf. I want to call it, say ya bayt Muhammad, I make it mansub. So I say ya bayta Muhammad. Even though I wouldn't call a house, but for example, if it was a person. Example, the word Abdullah means slave of Allah. So that's a mudaf because the word abd is a mudaf because it's the word before of in English when you translate it. If I want to call someone named Abdullah, it's ya Abdullah with a fatha. Why? Because if you're using a harf nida to call a mudaf, then it becomes mansub. Also, whenever you use ya ayyuha, the word after has to have alif lam. You can say ya ayyuha walad. It's a ya ayyuha walad. Simple little rule there. Next, you have the harf atif. What is a harf atif? Atif just means attached. So harf atif, it means harf of attachment. They simply attach words / sentences with each other. What are those? Wa, fa, thumma, oh, lakin, bal, la. So wa means and, fa means then, thumma means thereafter, oh means or. So these are just words that don't really have meaning by themselves, which is the definition of a harf. They don't have meaning by themselves unless there's a word after it or before it to make it make sense. Finally, you have the harf of questioning, harful istifham. No, there are no question marks in Arabic. You don't. I mean, even though nowadays when people type or text, they add periods and question marks, but in classical Arabic, there are no marks like here's a question with a question mark. You just have letters, or not letters, haruf, which are words. You have huruf that make a sentence into a question. Those are hal, a, man, ma, mata, aina. So, for example, are you going to work? هل ذاهب إلى العمل؟ هل ذاهب؟ هل are you? Or a or men, like men هذا. Who is this? Men means who? Ma means what? So what is this? Ma هذا. Which we already discussed this type of ma, which was ma istifhamiyya, if you remember in the types of ma. Mata means when. Aina means where. So aina ذاهب, where are you going? So aina. There's no question mark, but this the word aina makes it into a question. And with that, we conclude our blueprint of harf. Just to recap, we've done all of this, which is ism, all of that, fi'l, harf. Now we get to I'm sure many times in Arabic, or whenever you hear people talking about Arabic, they say there's only two main subjects. It's Nahw and Ṣarf. You probably heard what Nahw is, or heard about Nahw and heard about Ṣarf many times. And everything I spoke about just now with Ism, Fi'l, Harf, that was none of it. I never mentioned the word Nahw or Ṣarf. Why? Because you need to know that stuff to learn Nahw and Ṣarf. Those are like the building blocks, and Nahw combines them, and Ṣarf combines them. And whenever you combine them, then you can make sentences and speak, and that's how Arabic works. So you need those building blocks, those foundation, to be able to learn Nahw and Ṣarf. But those are quite easy. Those are only three building blocks: Ism, Fi'l, and Harf. You learn those, and then you can start learning Ṣarf and Nahw. So let's get into Ṣarf and Nahw. So I'm going to be discussing Ṣarf first and then Nahw. So what is Ṣarf? Ṣarf, you hear it a lot of the times, they say it's morphology. That's a big word that you probably don't know what it means, but it just means how words morph, or they transform into different forms to change the meaning. So you have words. We said there are three types of words in Arabic: ism, fi'l, and harf. So you could replace the word words here for ism, fi'l, and harf. How do ism, fi'ls, and harfs transform? How do they morph into different forms to change the meaning? How do you grab an ism and morph it to change the meaning? How do you grab a fi'l and morph it to change the meaning? Harf, you don't really morph it, they just have one form. But still, that's what Ṣarf is. That's why you need to have those building blocks of ism, fi'l, harf to be able to learn Ṣarf anyways, or Nahw as well. Now, one thing also we need to discuss is that in any language, there are pretty much like three levels of any language. You have letters, you use those letters to make up words, and you use those words to make up sentences. Now, for letters in Arabic, it's just like the alphabet, the Arabic alphabet. If you want, I made a video about the Arabic alphabet, just reading the whole thing. You just have to memorize them, that's it. And then you have words. Words are ism, fi'l, and harf. Now, and then you have sentences. You use those isms and fi'ls and harf and you combine them all and you make sentences. Now, Ṣarf doesn't deal with sentences. It only deals with words. So it only deals with isms, fi'l, and harf. How does the ism transform? How does the fi'l transform to make a different meaning? It doesn't actually work with once they're combined and how they make sentences. It's only, that's Nahw, that's what it does. It works with sentences. But Ṣarf is only with words, meaning isms and fi'ls. Harfs, they don't really transform. So how does Ṣarf, how it labels words? It labels them based on what form it takes. So words have a form. Almost, actually, all words in Arabic have a form. Almost. Some words don't. What are those words that don't have a form? Like some harfs, like the word fi doesn't have a form. But other words, like I said, like the word Muslim has a form. We'll get into that. Now, also, all words have root letters. All words in Arabic have root letters. Those root letters and those forms are the essence of understanding Ṣarf. There are root letters, like we said, all words have root letters, and almost all words have forms. So, a root in Arabic is called a jidr. So the core, what are the root letters? What is the jidr in Arabic? These are the core letters that give the ism or fi'l a meaning. Like we said, isms and fi'ls is all that Ṣarf deals with. So isms have a root and fi'ls have a root. These are the core letters that give a fi'l a meaning. So it's usually three. There's usually three root letters. But it could be 4, 5, even 6. But those are extremely rare. 99.9% of the times, actually about saying 99% of the time, it's 3. Sometimes it's 4, very rarely it's 5, and even more rarely it's 6. Now, I also said almost all words have a form. What is form in Arabic? It's wazn. Now, what are these? The root letters, they're never just floating around in space like random letters just floating around. They always take a form. This is called a wazn. Now, let me give you an example. Here's my example. Example, you have 3 root letters. So you have ba, bod, ra, and ba. You have these 3 root letters, but you never have, like I said, you never have root letters floating around. You're never reading a book and you just see a random bod or a random ra or a random ba just floating around. They always take a form. So the form would be, for example, daraba. Daraba means he hit. This is the form that it takes. So what does that mean? You grab the ba, you put it here, and you put a fatha on top of it. So you grab the first letter, put a fatha. You grab the second letter, you put a fatha. And you grab the third letter and you put a fatha. But instead of always saying this letter or this word has a form where the first letter has this, the second letter has that, the third letter has that, that's going to take too much time. So what they do is they just name these first letter, second letter, third letter. Instead of saying first, second, third, they say this is the fa letter, the fa letter. They say this is the ain letter, and this is the lam letter. That's what they say. This is the fa, this is the ain, this is the lam. Why? So they can say the fa letter has a fatha, the ain letter has a fatha, and the lam letter has a fatha. Now let's see what that actually looks like if we write it down. Let me see. If you have a fa that has a fatha, plus a ain that has a fatha, plus a lam that has a fatha, what does that spell? Fa'ala. Fa'ala. So what they say is this word daraba has the form fa'ala. What does that mean, fa'ala? That means the first letter has fatha, second letter has fatha, third letter has fatha. So instead of saying all of that 20,000 times every time they're talking about a word, they just say, oh, this word has the form fa'ala. Why? That means grab the ba, put it with the fatha. Grab the ra, put it with the fatha. Grab the ba, put it with the fatha. So let me give another example. If you have like the root, the first root is called fa, second one is called ain, third one is called lam. For example, you have 3 root letters, ain, lam, and mim, and you want to put it into the form fa'ala. Fa'ala. So the first letter has a fatha. The second letter has a shadda with a fatha. The third letter has a fatha. So I grab the first letter, I put it in there. Ah. You grab the second letter, put it in there with the lam with the shadda. Put the mim in there as well with the fatha. So that's allama. So if you grab ain, lam, mim, and put it in the form fa'ala, you get allama. So if you see the word allama, you say, what's the form? It's the form of fa'ala. That's pretty much how Ṣarf works. Now, when words take certain forms, they have different meanings. We already kind of learned this with the present tense. We said a ya with a u is singular rafa. It's rafa, but also means like huwa. We learned like huwa yansuru, huma yansurani, hum yansuruna. That gives us the number and the gender. So whenever you form them with a ya and a una, it's different with a ya and just a u, for example. It's singular versus plural, so they change the meaning. Now there are types of forms. There's many. I didn't name all of them here, but these are important ones to learn. We have an ism fa'al. First of all, what is the meaning of ism fa'al before I give you the form? Because there are forms and they have meanings, like I just said. When the word takes certain forms, they have different meanings. Isms that are doers of actions, these are called ism fa'als. For example, I said the word Muslim many, many times. The word Muslim is actually a type of ism fa'al. Why? Because it means a submitter, someone who submits. That's what it means to be a Muslim. Muslim is a submitter. So the word, because of its form, it means someone who does an action. He does the action of submitting. Another word is alim. Alim is a knowledgeable person, but it means like knower. Usually words that end with er are ism fa'al, like knower, doer, submitter, runner. All those words are ism fa'als, like alim, nasir, muslim. Ism maf'ul. These are isms. This is the opposite, pretty much. Isms that actions are done to them. So, for example, the word Mansur. Mansur means someone who is helped. If your name is Mansur, Nasara, like I said many times, means he helped. Mansur means a helped person, someone who is helped, aided, someone who's aided. So that is a ism because of the form. It has a meaning of the action is done to them. The word mu'allam. Mu'allam means someone who's taught. So the action of teaching is done to him. That is ism maf'ul. You have ism zarf. These are isms that indicate time and place. Like masjid is a place of doing sajda. Madrasa is a place of teaching. Fi'l amr. Not remember, sarf is not just about isms; it's about fi'l as well. Fi'l amr is a fi'l that is a command that commands you to do something. Fi'l nahi, a fi'l that prohibits you to do something. So learning sarf is just learning all of these forms. That form means this. That form means that. This form, all these forms mean different things for isms and fi'l. If you grab this fi'l and you put it in that form, it means this now. It's a command fi'l. If you grab this ism and you put it in this form, like fa'ala or whatever it may be, whatever form you learn, then it means a ism fa'al. It's a doer of an action. So that's pretty much all the forms. To memorize those forms, you don't memorize, okay, here's one form, here's another form, here's another form. This is what you do. There are 14 basic families in Arabic, which are groups that combine all of these forms so that if a word is from a certain family, we know the form of its ism fa'al, maf'ul, fi'l amr, etc. Now, this may be confusing now to you. What am I talking about? There are many forms. There's ism fa'als, there's past tense fi'ls, which is fi'l madi, fi'l mudari', which is present tense fi'l. You have all these words. Instead of just memorizing them, the Arab, or when you learn them, you memorize them in families. These families, they have all of the past tense, present tense, all of them in there. So if a word is from that family, you know, okay, the present tense looks like this, the ism fa'al form looks like that, whatever it may be. If it's still confusing to you, then it's going to make sense right now. Here's the structure of a family. Structure of the families. Whenever I read them, which you're going to see all of the 14 right now, this is how it goes. The first word I say is always the past tense. Second word I say is always the present tense. The third word I say is always the masdar. We haven't learned what the masdar is actually. Masdar is the idea of something. If daraba means he hit, then the word darb, which means hitting, to hit, that's the idea of hitting. That's the masdar. Or the fourth word is ism fa'al. And then you have fi'l madi again, but this time it's passive. Fi'l mudari again, this time it's passive. The masdar again. Now you have ism maf'ul. We learned ism maf'ul, what that is. And then you have the fi'l amr, fi'l nahi, ism zarf. We learned what all those are. The only thing new here is passive. What does that mean, passive? Passive words, it's the same as in English, actually. If you know what passive is in English, then that's good. But passive is pretty much, if I say, I changed. That could be active or passive. Passive means it affects myself. I myself changed. It affects myself. Or it could be, I changed the wall. I changed my notebook. Then I changed something else. That is active. So fi'l maldi, passive, it means it affects yourself. That's pretty much what it means. I think it's going to be a lot easier if we just look at an example and then it'll make sense why it is that these families are important. So for example, this family is called Nasara. This family is called Nasara. That's what it means. It means the first letter has a fatha, the second letter has a fatha, third letter has a fatha, but it's not the only family with that. This one also has 3 fathas. It's about the present tense that is different than the other ones. So this one is, if you just memorize it, Nasara yansuru nasran nasirun. Nusira yunsaru nasran mansurun. Unsur la tansur mansarun mansirun mansaratun. Now, this, what I said, the first word is the past tense, second word present tense, third word masdar, fourth word ism fa'al. Why is this important? If I have a different word and I say it's from the nasara family, then you know what's the present tense. The present tense is going to have a ya with a fatha, and then the noon sadra is the first, second, third letter. This is the fa'in lam. So if I have another word that's in this family, I know it's going to sound like nasara yansuru. If there's a word, for example, kataba, for example, if I say kataba is from the nasara family, which it is, then how do I know what the present tense of kataba is? Kataba means he wrote. How do I say he writes? Well, if it's going to sound like yansuru, it must be yaktubu. So it must be kataba yaktubu. And then how do I say the ism fa'il? The ism fa'il is the fourth word I say. How do I say the ism fa'il of kataba. Ism fa'il, what does it mean? The word that's the doer of an action. So a writer. If I want to say writer, how do I say writer? Well, if I know it's in the Nasra family, the ism fa'il sounds like Nasir. So it's going to be the first letter, then a fatha, then a alif, second letter with a kasra, then the last letter. So it's going to be katib. So a writer is a katib. So this makes it super easy because I don't have to memorize 1,000 words. I don't memorize, okay, kataba means he wrote. Yaktubu means he writes. Katib is a writer. I don't have to memorize that. I just have to know this family. Then whenever I hear a word, this word is from that family. That's it. I know how to make the ism fa'il, the ism maf'ul, the fi'l madi. I know how to do all of that because I know what family it's from. Now, going back, I said there's 14 of them, which are all right here. But those 14 are divided into two categories. That's why there's two columns here. There's 6 and there's 8. The 6, you can say small families, and the 8 big families. Now the small one, it's called Thulathi Mujarrad, which means 3 and that's it. What does that mean, 3? Like I said, there's usually 3 root letters. But sometimes the form makes you add a letter. Like the form itself makes you add a letter. So Thulathi Mujarrad means forms that use the 3 root letters and then they don't add any more to it. For example, Nasara. Nasara, the first letter is Noon, the second root letter is Sad, the third root letter is Ra. That's it. The only thing it added was Fatha, Fatha, Fatha. It didn't add any letters. Unlike this one, which is Af'ala. Now it has the first letter, second letter, third letter, but it adds a Hamza. It adds a letter. That's Thulathi Mazid Fi. 3 and some more. 3 plus 3 plus, pretty much. This one here is 3 and that's it. So there's the big families that add letters to the root letters, and there's the small families that don't add anything to the root letters. Now all you have to do is memorize them, and then whenever you learn Arabic, they say, oh, this is the family Nasara, this is family Fatha, this is family Af'ala, whatever it may be, and then you know the whole entire Ism Fa'il, Ism Maf'ul, you know all the words that could be made from that family without having to memorize them, just having to memorize one, template pretty much. What I'm gonna do is just literally read them off, and you're gonna have to memorize them. Or whenever you learn Arabic, these are things that you learn anyways. So all the small families first, then all the large families. Small families: Nasara, Yansuru, Nasran, Nasir. Nusira, Yunsaru, Nasran, Mansur. Unsur, La Tansur, Mansarun, Mansirun, Mansaratun. These 3 words, I said the last thing is Ism Zarf. So these are all Ism Zarf, mean time and place. A time of helping, a place of helping, a time and a place of helping are all these. You have فتح يفتح فتحا فاتح فتح يفتح فتحا مفتوح افتح لا تفتح مفتح مفتح مفتحة. Now you may notice the past tense of this one here looks the same as this one. Nasara, fataha. If I saw the word fataha, I wouldn't know what family it's from. Like the family is called fataha. But if I saw a word like kataba, kataba sounds like nasara, it sounds like fataha. Then you have to look at the present tense to know exactly what family it's from. If it's yaktabu, it's from this family. If it's yaktubu, it's from that family. Or if it's yaktibu, it's from this family. But usually words are they're told to you. It's from this family. And once you're told, then you know exactly what the present tense is and what everything else is. Third family, daraba. Daraba, yadribu, darban, darib. Duriba, yudrabu, darban, madrub. اضرب لا تضرب مضرب مضرب مضربة. سمع يسمع سمعا سامع. سمع يسمع سمعا مسموع. اسمع لا تسمع مسمع مسمع مسمع. One thing that I want to note with the small families is that if I know a word is from this family, I know all the other words because I know how they sound because it's from this family. The only thing I don't know actually is the masdar, with the small families only. The masdar, you have to just search it up like in dictionaries. There's no pattern. Like right now, this one is sam'an. If another word is from the sami'a family, it might not be sam'an, is like this same pattern with the first letter fatha, second letter sukun, third letter. It might not be that pattern. It might be a different pattern. But other than that, all the other words are exactly the same. Now you have hasiba, yahsibu, hisaban, hasib. حسب يحسب حسابا محسوب احسب لا تحسب محسب محسب محسبة. The last one is karuma, the karuma family. It goes karuma, yakrumu, karaman, kareem. Then there is no past passive or present passive. Karaman is the masdar. There is no ism maf'ul. If a word is from this family, There's no passive because the word, by definition, the meaning of the word is passive. It cannot have a passive version. It already is passive. Even the active version, the meaning is passive. So words in this family, they don't have this line here. أكرم, لا تكرم, مكرم, مكرم, مكرمة. Those are pretty much the only 6 small families that you need to know. Now for the big families, the families that actually add letters to the root letters. So the family is called أفعل. What does that mean? That means that there's going to be a hamza with a fatha. Then the first letter of the roots, whatever root letters you have, the first letter is going to have a sukoon. Second letter is going to have a fatha. Third letter is going to have a fatha. Instead of just saying, because they all have the fa'in lam in them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a jither, actually, a root. Like we're now put aslama yuslimu. This is an example of a word from the af'ala family. Instead of writing af'ala yuf'ilu, I'm going to say aslama yuslimu. I'm going to give you an actual example. Otherwise, they're all going to have fa'in lam, and it's going to be like a bunch of af'ala yuf'ilu fa'ala fa. It's going to be too confusing. So I just gave an actual example. This one here is aslama. Aslama is from the af'ala family, so you can call it the aslama family if you want. Either way, it's the af'ala family. أسلم يسلم إسلاما مسلم أسلم يسلم إسلاما مسلم أسلم لا تسلم مسلم. That's it. So if a word is from the أسلم family, like let's say أكرم, أكرم means he honored, أكرم. If I want to say what is someone who is an honorer, someone who honors, that's اسم فاعل. اسم فاعل, if you remember, is the 4th word. So 1, 2, 3, 4, this one. Muslim. So that means there's a meme with the sukoon, with the dhamma, and then the root letters is sin, lam, meme. So it's going to be first letter has a sukoon, second letter has a kasra, third letter is just the third letter. So it's going to be mukrim, Muslim, mukrim. I don't have to memorize that the ism fa'il of akrama is mukrim. I just need to know this family, and I just plug it in pretty much. علم, يعلم, تعليم, معلم. علم, يعلم, تعليم, معلم. علم, لا تعلم, معلم. Any word in this family sounds like that. جاهد, يجاهد, جهادا, ومجاهدة, ومجاهدة, مجاهد. جوهد, يجاهد, جهاد, مجاهدة, مجاهد. جاهد, لا تجاهد, مجاهدة. This one here has 2 masdars. It has jihad and mujahada. This is just a family that has 2 masdar. Like I said, with the small families, the masdars, you have to look them up individually. But with the big families, you don't. A word from this family has a masdar with the same form. A word from this family has a masdar with this form. You don't have to look it up. These are the actual forms. تعلم, يتعلم, تعلم, متعلم. تعلم, يتعلم, تعلم, تعلم, متعلم, تعلم, لا تتعلم, متعلم. تساءل, يتساءل, تساؤل, متسائل. تسوئل, يتساءل, تساؤل, متساءل. تساءل, لا تتساءل, متساءل. اقترب, يقترب, اقتراب, مقترب. These are all the families. This is like تفاعل. This is افتعل. So اقترب, يقترب, اقتراب, مقترب. اقترب, يقترب, اقتراب, مقترب. اقترب, لا تقترب, مقترب. This family here is in fa'ala, meaning the fa'in lam has this all fathas and there's an in before. So inqalaba, yanqalibu, inqilab, munqalib. Also, this one here has no passive line because the meaning of any word from this family is automatically passive. You cannot have a passive word, it's already passive anyways. Inqalib, la tanqalib, munqalab. Finally, استغفر, استفعل family. So it's استغفر, يستغفر, استغفار, مستغفر, استغفر, يستغفر, استغفار, مستغفر, استغفر, لا تستغفر, مستغفر. Now, if you know Arabic, then you already know all of these, and this is just review. If you don't, then you're not going to memorize them just from listening to them once. However, it's something that you're going to learn, so it's good to keep in your mind that this is something that I will need to know. And that is all of Ṣarf, from up there all the way down there. That's it. Now, the reason I said 14 basic families, right here I said there's 14 basic families, because there is a subject that is called like advanced or irregular Ṣarf with weird root letters that don't follow the norm. And that way, it's still the same families, but the way you say them is different. But that's more advanced, so I'm not going to go over that here. Look how short that is. Nahw is just this. That's it. That's all you need to know. You know this, and that's it pretty much with Nahw. That's it. Nahw. What is Nahw? Nahw is grammar, pretty much. Grammar. But what is even grammar, even in English? What is grammar? It labels how words end, at least in Arabic, it labels how the words end and what role they play in a sentence. Okay, so remember I said there's 3 levels of language: letters, words, and sentences. Letters, which is the Arabic alphabet. Words, there are 3 types of words in Arabic: ism, fi'l, harf. We went over all the words. We haven't gone over sentences. We are going to right now. Nahw deals with words and sentences. Remember, Ṣarf only dealt with words. It didn't do anything with sentences. It was all about how do words transform to change the meaning. But Nahw also deals with sentences. So first of all, how it labels words. How does Nahw label words? It labels them based off of their status. Nahw gives the label of rafa', nasib, jar, and jazm. Now we already learned this actually. So while we were learning, you have ism, and then you have 4 properties of ism. Status is number 1. Status, you have the forms of status, which is rafa', nasib, and jar. When we learned that, all that actually was Nahw. If you see a word like muslimun, and you say, oh, it's marfu', it's in the rafa' status because it has the un ending, then you're labeling it through Nahw. That's what Nahw does with words. But what does it do with sentences? Once Nahw labels a word, it then labels its role in a sentence. So now we actually have meaning to the status. Oh, it's rafi', but what's the purpose? Okay, now I know it's rafi'. What's the benefit now? What now? Now that I know it's rafi'. If it's nasib, okay, what now though? This is where it labels it within the sentence. There are 2 sentences. There's jumla ismiya, jumla fi'liya. So let's just go with jumla ismiya first. Jumla ismiya is a ism-based sentence. It means the ism is the most important part of the sentence. Now you have to be careful. Not every sentence that begins with an ism is a jumla ismiya. But a jumla ismiya is a sentence where the ism is the main topic, pretty much. Now every jumla ismiya has an is/am/are in English. So he is whatever. The house is large. The bus is yellow. The is that makes it a jumla ismiya. Now however in Arabic there is no is in Arabic. So it's simply understood to exist between the 2 parts of a jumla ismiya. There are 3 parts to a jumla ismiya. So a jumla ismiya has 3 parts. Part 1, we call it mubtada. Part 2, we call it khabar. Part 3, we call it muta'alliq bil khabar. Mubtada is the subject. The khabar is a predicate, and the muta'alliq bil khabar is secondary predicate. It doesn't really matter if you understand what those are even in English. It doesn't matter, because I'm going to go over it right now. Mubtada is the first rafa' in the sentence. So if you have a word that is rafa' and it's just the first word in the sentence, so you're just talking, you say al-baytu kabir, al-baytu. So the word in the sentence, al-baytu kabirun. Without translating it, you know that the word bayt is rafa', and it's also the first word in the sentence. So if you have an ism and it's rafa' and it's the first rafa' in the sentence, you know that's the mubtada. Also, mubtada is the word before the invisible is. So if I say al-baytu kabirun, then you know the word al-bayt is going to be before the word is. So al-bayt means house. So that means it's going to be the house is something. You already know that it's because it's the mubtada. Now what else could be the mubtada? A harf of nasib plus its ism. We already learned about harf of nasib. It makes the next word nasib. So that could be mubtada. Ism ishara, we learned those. Those could be mubtada. Pronouns are always actually mubtada. And 99% of the time, the mubtada is proper. So we learned about status type was common and proper. Then 99% of the time, mubtada is proper. Part 2 of a jumla ismiya is the khabar. The khabar is the word after is. It is usually not proper, actually. It's usually common. And it's the second rafa'. Usually it's marfu', not always. But let's say like 80% of the time it's marfu'. So in the sentence, al-baytu kabirun, you notice how I said kabirun and not kabiran or kabirin. Words aren't just randomly rafa' or randomly nasib, but because it was the khabar, we made it rafa'. Meaning it's the word after is. The house is, kabir means big. The house is big. So the word big is after is. It is the khabar, you have to make it rafa'. That's pretty much the rule. Now muta'alliq bil khabar is the third part. It is also after is, but it's not right after, it's later. It's made up of a jar majroor, which is the harf of jar plus its ism. That is the muta'alliq bil khabar. It's just more information, kind of translated the same way. Like saying al-baytu kabirun fil madina. Fi was a harf jar. And it's like saying the house is big in the city. So في المدينة, it makes the word jar, but you just call it a متعلق بالخبر, and that's a نحو labeling. Or it could be an اسم ظرف. We learned about اسم ظرف up here whenever we're looking at all the different types of forms of isms. اسم ظرف could also be a متعلق بالخبر. And those are the only three parts of a جملة اسمية. So if you see a sentence, it has an ism and it's رفع, well, you know that's the mubtada. Or if it has a pronoun, or if it has an ism ishara, those are all signs that that's the mubtada. And it's going to be the word right before is. So, you know, if you're translating it into English, it's going to be something is, and the khabar is going to be right after it, typically. So, jumla ismiya, it's very simple. Lastly, we have the jumla fi'liya. So, obviously, if you have a sentence, ism-based sentence, the jumla fi'liya is just a fi'l-based sentence. Unlike the jumla ismiya, every sentence that begins with a fi'l is a jumla fi'liya. So, if you see a fi'l, then it's a jumla fi'liya pretty much. Jumla fi'liya has 4 parts, unlike the ismiya, which had only 3 parts. The first part is the fi'l, then the fa'il, then the maf'ul, then the muta'alliq. The fi'l we already learned actually, so I'm not going to talk about it. It's just the past tense. So the first part of a jumla ismiya, of a jumla fi'liya, is the actual fi'l itself, is the verb itself, which is either going to be a past tense, it's going to be a present tense, it's going to be a command, it's going to be a prohibiting fi'l, whatever it may be. We already learned all of those forms. So that's the first part of a jumla fi'liya. Now we have the fa'il, maf'ul, muta'alliq. The fa'il is the doer of the fi'l. Now this here is a very important point. You cannot get confused about this point. The fa'il is different than the ism fa'il. We learned a word like Muslim. It means a submitter, someone who does an action has the ism fa'il. We call that ism fa'il. Now this is a fa'il. Is there a difference? Yes. This is different than the ism fa'il. The ism fa'il is about the form of the word and tells you that the definition of this word is someone who does whatever action it may be. So a Muslim, he does silm, he does Islam, he submits. A alim, he's a knower, he does knowledge. A nasir is a helper, he helps. So that is talking about the form of the word, and it tells you that the definition of this word is someone who does whatever action. Now, not the ism fa'il, but the fa'il, which is what we're talking about here, is within a jumla fi'liya. And if a word is a fa'il, then that word is the doer of the fi'l. Like we said, there's 4 parts of a jumla fi'liya. The first one is a fi'l. So you have an action. Let's say daraba. Daraba means he hit. But you don't want to say he hit. You want to say Muhammad hit. So now you say the fa'il, who is the one who hit? Muhammad is the one who hit. So he's the fa'il, he's the doer of that particular fi'l. It's not talking about the form of the word. It's not talking about the definition of the word Muhammad. It's completely separate. This is talking about sentence-wise. It's the fa'il of this fi'l. Now the ism fa'il is talking about the ism itself, what form it's in, what is the meaning of that word. So you cannot get those two confused, otherwise it'll make no sense. Now, one thing you need to know is the fa'il must be marfu', meaning it must be in the rafi' status, and it must be after the fi'l. So if I say daraba Muhammad, and I want to say Muhammad hit, what's the status of the word Muhammad? Well, it must be marfu'. I have to say daraba Muhammadun, Muhammad hit. That way you can make it the fa'il. So, next part is the maf'ul. This is a detail of the fi'l. Same with the ism fa'il and the fa'il type of difference. This is the same difference. We learned about something called ism maf'ul. And we learned about now this thing is called maf'ul. Are they the same thing? No. I'm going to just pretty much copy this sentence but change the word fa'il to maf'ul. This is different. This here is different than the ism maf'ul. The ism maf'ul is about the form of a word and tells you that the definition of this word is someone who the action is done to them. That's the definition of ism maf'ul. The maf'ul is within the jumla fi'liya. And if a word is a maf'ul, then that word, the fi'l is done to them. So that's different. It's a detail of the fi'l. So it's not the same as the ism maf'ul. You have to separate those two. One thing is it must be mansub in the nasab status. So what does that mean? If I want to say Muhammad hit a guy named Nasir. Muhammad hit Nasir. Now Nasir, we said the word Nasir is a ism fa'il. But in the sentence, he's a detail of the fi'l. Why? Because who did he hit? He hit Nasir. We said the ism or the maf'ul has to be mansub. So you say Daraba Muhammadun Nasiran. You have to make it nasab. Why? Because it's a detail. To make it a maf'ul, it has to be nasab. Now there's a bunch of different types of maf'uls. You have maf'ul bihi, which is who and what details, like who did he hit or what did he hit. Maf'ul fihi is when and where details. When did he hit? Where did he hit? Maf'ul hal is the state of doing the fi'l. So it's kind of like, how did he hit? You know, did he hit strong? Did he hit weak or whatever? How did he hit? Maf'ul lahu, which is why. Why did he hit? Maf'ul mutlaq is just an emphasizer, and these are all the different types. They're all going to be the same rules. They're all mansub, and typically they're all after the fi'l, but they could be before actually. This one here is the easiest one. متعلق بالفعل. It just means متعلق means attached or like kind of connected. So connected to the fi'l. It's literally just a jar and a majroor. A harf jar plus the ism. So if you say ضرب محمد ناصرا في البيت. Muhammad hit Nasir in the house. So في البيت is a jar. It's a harf jar. في البيتي jar because there's a harf jar before. That's just we just label it as متعلق بالفعل. It's just another information, and that's it pretty much. With that, we have learned all of Nahw. So we've learned all of Nahw, all of basic Nahw, you can say, all of basic Ṣarf, and all of the building blocks of Nahw and Ṣarf, which are the ism, fi'l, and harf. So that is pretty much it for literally the entire, or like 90% of the whole Arabic language. If you know all of these, then you have a super solid foundation in Arabic, and you could pretty much go on to learn on your own and go study and learn more things because you already know all these things. So I know this video was very beneficial for me because you have to like write down all the notes, and it was like good revision. So this, I hope, is going to be a good resource or a reference for people who they don't know Arabic and they want to know what do they need to learn. Okay, I need to learn this, then I need to learn that, then I need to learn this. Or people who already know Arabic where they say, okay, well, I never learned that actually. Or I learned that, but I forgot about it actually. So, and also it can structure it in their brain so it's not just confusing and it's easier for people to remember. It's like a roadmap pretty much, a roadmap for Arabic. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.